I'm Chantel Roberts. I'm a speaker, author, consultant, and an occasional expert witness for claims handling standards, practices, and procedures. My goal is to improve the claims handling process through education for adjusters and attorneys. This podcast is Insurance Suits, where we will be speaking with Michael Johnston today. Welcome to the Insurance Suits podcast, a bi-monthly discussion of the people who are involved in insurance and lawsuits. Hi, we are with Michael Johnston today, talking to him. He is an expert and a consultant with AIMCO. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm an attorney, licensed to practice in Texas and Oklahoma. I've been practicing insurance law for about 42 years, and also have taught insurance law at a local law school. And so I think I know a little bit about it, but I learn something new every day.
I think that's important about insurance is that there is always something new to learn. Like no matter how long you've been doing it, it's always something new. And every case is different, I would think.
Oh, yes. And for example, the advent of COVID has put in a lot of new insurance concepts and interpretations as to what constitutes business interruption, what constitutes physical loss. And so it's always an exciting field. People don't think insurance is all that exciting, but let me tell you something. It's new and different every day. And I've been blessed because I don't think there's been one day in the last 42 years that I can say I was bored because there's something exciting going on all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the purpose of this podcast as well, is to talk about how insurance really isn't that boring and how insurance and lawsuits are, basically intertwined, and what we can do as experts to help the lawyers or even the lay people understand a little bit more about what we do, how we can impact positively their field. How did you get into insurance?
It was just by chance. As a young lawyer, I was asked to try a case involving arson, and it was a very difficult case and one that lasted a long time. And so all of a sudden, I was an insurance lawyer, and as a result of that one case, and it just sort of expanded from there.
So I guess it's fair to say that you didn't always want to become an insurance lawyer or whatever.
Well, the problem is, of course, when I was in the 7th grade, when I decided I wanted to be a trial lawyer, I had no understanding of how insurance and litigation work together. And so that's the way most lawyers find their niche and their expertise, is it just sort of happens by happenstance.
Well, what do you think is something that most people misunderstand about being an expert witness? And I don't know if we should go back and kind of define what an expert witness is, so that people would understand what an expert witness is, and then what do you think that they mostly misunderstand, or perhaps they misunderstand what an expert witness is?
Well, I think first we need to talk about what an expert is and the purpose of an expert witness, and because a lot of people don't understand that, and a lot of attorneys don't understand that. An expert witness is really a person who is there to help the fact finder, and an expert witness is appropriate when there is some concept that people don't ordinarily know about. So in the field of expert witnesses in insurance, if there's an insurance coverage case, then an expert can help a jury understand the terminology of the insurance policy and also understand how that policy language would apply to the circumstances of that particular case. Insurance has a number of terms that are just not familiar to people, and so it is helpful. It can be helpful for an expert to provide that information to a jury. The thing that's misunderstood many times is that an expert witness is not there to be an advocate. But the way that litigation has evolved is that, well, he's a plaintiff's expert or he's a defendant's expert, as opposed to he's an insurance expert. And there's been a number of cases, one in particular that was decided by the Texas Supreme Court, where an expert witness did not understand that. He thought he was an advocate for whoever was paying. So his opinions changed, depending upon who was paying. And the Supreme Court sort of outlined all of those times when his opinions were different, depending upon whether he was hired by the plaintiff or hired by the defendant. And that just destroys the credibility of the expert and results a lot of times in the expert being disqualified.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I kind of think of us as being independent. I know that I have told retaining counsel, whether it be on the plaintiff side or on the defense side, I just don't see it, or I do see it, and it being necessarily bad faith, because that's usually when I'm involved, at least for the claims point of view. So it's kind of interesting that I try to be as independent as possible, and the facts, just the facts.
Well, the most effective experts are that way. And in fact, I found that the most effective experts are really teachers. They teach the jury what the particular area is. I had an expert one time that was involved in a case where there was a fire, and it was determined, or at least alleged, that the fire started on the inside of a computer. And this guy was a forensic electrical engineer, and he literally went into the courtroom, set the remains of that computer on a table in front of the jury, and with a pointer was pointing, now this is the element of this computer that caused this fire. It's capacitor number 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why this capacitor was able to start this fire. And I mean, the jury was just locked in to what he was saying. And he was extremely credible, and he was a great teacher. And I think that's one of the characteristics of a great expert witness. Independence, and then being a teacher.
Right. So what is your specialty in the insurance expert witness field? Mine happens to be claims. Is yours claims, or is it agent? Because I mean, there are all sorts of different kinds of expert witnesses for insurance. It's not just claims, and it's not just being an agent or what have you.
Well, it flows in different areas. One is insurance coverage disputes. Others are suspected fraudulent claims. And then finally, agent errors. I did work in the field of evaluating agents and the activity of agents. And so as a result, I said, this is kind of crazy that I'm here evaluating the actions of agents, and I'm not an insurance agent. So I went and got to be a licensed insurance agent. I've never sold a policy, but at least it educated me on what the perspective is from insurance agents. And I think that's a characteristic of a good expert who's curious and goes out and obtains more education for himself or herself.
I think that could be a characteristic of any kind of expert, where you go out and you seek continuing education. But I know that I am often contacted for agent E&O claims or bad faith claims for agents, and although as a claims adjuster, I see where the agent may have messed up because they didn't put a endorsement on, or they did put an endorsement on and the adjuster ended up using it. I'm like you, it's not my sandbox, so I don't want to end up scuttling the lawsuit by being the wrong expert for retaining counsel.
I think that's a great observation, but again, the perspective of an agent versus an adjuster is one that is unique, and a lot of people don't understand that when they have a claim, they go call their agent, and a lot of times the agents step over what their authority is and start making claim determinations when they haven't done any of the investigation. And so that's part of an area that I focused on, is the relationship between agents and adjusters in claims. So that, for example, I did a lot of work in the field of jewelry claims. When a jewelry store owner had a burglary, and calls the agent and tells the agent, "Oh, I've lost all my inventory. It's $1 million worth of inventory. I've got coverage, don't I?" And of course, the agent typically is going to be tempted to say, "Of course you've got coverage. Your premium check came in, and
Sure.
policy, you've got coverage." But of course, and then as a result, that jewelry store owner goes out and borrows $1 million to replace that inventory, only to find out that the burglary was caused by one of his employees, which then would negate coverage. So there you have a real problem. So the relationship between an agent and an adjuster is important for both of those professions to understand how it works and what the limits are.
Yeah. What, in your opinion, is the most important trait that someone would need to be as an expert witness to be successful in the job?
Well, first is credentials. If someone was to call me as an expert on soccer, I'd say, "No, I'm not your guy." So first thing is credentials, and that includes experience, that includes education, it includes involvement in the profession. So that's one thing. The next thing is the ability to teach and to communicate, the ability to make complicated issues simple and understandable. The other thing is to be objective and to have your opinions and testimony be objective and not be there to be on one person's side or another. I think that's what makes an effective expert.
What's the one lesson that being an expert has taught you that you think that everybody else should know in their life?
In their life, okay.
Just a very general question.
Okay. Well, I think a good characteristic that's learned is to be respectful of other people, to understand that lawyer that's cross-examining you on the witness stand is not your enemy, that he's simply asking questions and to respond. I mean, if the other lawyer, the cross-examining lawyer, is being antagonistic, to respond with kindness and professionalism, and instead of responding with antagonism or sarcasm.
That's
and
very
I think
true.
that's the way it is in every aspect of life. You have to treat people with respect, regardless of where they're coming from, regardless of whether they're agreeing with you or not. To treat people with respect and understanding. I think that's a key element that you learn from not only testifying, but learn in just everyday living.
Yeah, that is very true. And I think it is very applicable today in today's society, where we are very, very polarized. especially politically. Not that this is a political podcast or anything to that effect, but it seems to be, everybody seems to think of it as a very black or white issue, and it's not. There are, of course, lots of shades of gray. I do remember I had been in a courtroom and they were finished examining me. We had stopped for a break, I believe, and I was walking out of the courtroom. Opposing counsel was walking out of the courtroom, and he stopped me. He said, "Hey, you know, I wasn't trying to be mean to you up there." And it kind of tickled me because I said, no, I totally get it. I didn't think that at all. I know that you are doing your job, and you have to be as aggressive as possible. And that is your job. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing your job. And I think that it would be important for experts to kind of have that wall up, so to speak, to understand that it's just like you said, these people are doing their jobs. Just be respectful.
And another thing in terms of testifying is to simply answer the question and not try to elaborate or advocate.
I do have a problem with that.
Yes.
But I'm a young expert still.
Well, and I will tell you on that point too, the most effective lawyers in cross-examining an expert are the ones who are very courteous
Mm.
but have prepared and who know the subject as well as the expert. And
Right.
and I think those are the most effective attorneys in cross-examination of experts.
I have heard that a lot of times. And I think we tend to believe that it's the ones that kind of intimidate you. But so many attorneys have told me, no, I can get much more. And it's like that old, so you're in Texas, I'm from Arkansas. We've talked about this previously. It's that old Southern saying that you can attract more flies with honey than vinegar. So we both know what that means, and I think you're right. I totally agree with that. What would you think would be an aspect of your job or field of expertise, maybe even insurance, that no one necessarily agrees with you about?
Well, I'll give you an example.
Mm.
I live close to a university, and it's a university that has a mascot with a horned frog. So
we can guess which one that
you
is.
can guess which one that is in Fort Worth, Texas.
TCU.
But anyway, the guy that was the heading up the business department at TCU lived near me, and so we, from time to time, we'd see each other on the sidewalk, and I said, you know what, I've discovered that there's just a lot of people that don't understand insurance. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand the terminology. And I was teaching a law school insurance course, and I understand that and found that out very quickly, that those law students who were in the last year of law school had no clue as to what insurance was or how it worked. And so I said, I'm really concerned. So I would be willing to teach a basic course in insurance to business students at TCU. And he said, oh, that's a great idea. And let me talk to my faculty advisors and all the people, the educational bureaucracy that he had to go through. And he came back and he said, well, I'm sorry, but there just wasn't enough interest in insurance in the business department at TCU.
I think
and
that's
my
crazy.
response to him is said, well, can you name for me any legitimate business transaction that doesn't involve insurance? And he sort of was silent. And he said, I get your point. I said, well, you know where I live.
Right.
So they changed their mind. And that's been probably 15 years ago. And I still haven't gotten the memo yet to teach that course. But in any event, that's an example of the fact that there's just a tremendous lack of understanding of the concept of insurance and how insurance works and the different types of insurance and insurance terminology.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that 100%. So what is something that you would like people to know about you, something that maybe I didn't ask you about?
Well, I can just say that my dream from the time I was in the seventh grade was to be an attorney, and that I'm proud to be an attorney. And I think it's a very honorable profession, and it's one that it's our business to peacefully resolve disputes, whether it be by settlement or even by trial. But that's a part of a process to peacefully resolve disputes. And expert witnesses and attorneys and judges and juries are all part of that process. And if people keep their eye on that overall purpose, then I think they will do well. And then I want to say that people don't understand how there's a fear of lawyers, and how trying to take away that fear is good advocacy. And so I guess that's what it is. And that also that, I'm a wonderful father and my children love me to death. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
one of whom is sitting kind of off camera here. Okay.
Didn't we talk about how you sent your kids to Baylor, and so therefore then you went to Baylor Law School, so therefore you have to be superior in every way. Sic 'em bears.
Oh yes. That's that sort of thing that there's a country western singer from Lubbock, Texas, named Mac Davis. And Mac Davis had a song, and it was a prayer, and the chorus of the song was, "Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way." And,
oh, sing into my heart there.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of times, especially young lawyers and law students. Oh man, when I was after I completed my first year of law school at Baylor, I thought I was the greatest lawyer in the world, and went and was clerking in a law firm in San Antonio, and was assigned to a partner, and the partner gave me a legal research assignment. And back then, I went to the law library, and I did 3 days worth of research, and I wrote out my legal brief and made corrections on it and got it perfect, and went back to the partner and said, "Okay, I've completed my assignment. Here's the legal brief. What do you want me to do with it?" And he said, "Well, give it to my legal secretary, Colleen, and Colleen will take it from there." Well, that was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the next day, about 10 o'clock in the morning, I went to Colleen and said, "Have you prepared my legal brief yet?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, have you started on it?" And she said, "No, but I will." Went back later that afternoon and asked her whether she had completed preparing that legal brief. And she said, "No, but I'll get to it." And so I told her and admonished her that this was a very important legal brief, and that the partner was really expecting it, and that we really needed to focus on getting that brief done. Well, several hours later, the partner invited me to come into his office. He was a wonderful person. And he said, "Michael, you are a great law student. You're at Baylor Law School, a fine litigation law school. You made the law review, and I know you're going to be a great lawyer. But you know something? I can live without you, but I can't live without Colleen. So stop bugging Colleen about the brief. She'll get it." Okay. Well,
yes.
Come to find out, that partner that I was working for is a gentleman named Herb Kelleher, who some people may know is the founder of Southwest Airlines.
Mm,
And Colleen, his legal secretary, is Colleen Barrett, who became the president of Southwest Airlines.
wow.
So my claim to fame was that I had admonished the future president of Southwest Airlines because she had not yet typed my legal brief. And
Wow.
that was a lesson that has stayed with me for a long time, even today, because for some reason I made an impression on them, because on Southwest flights they would see me,
Mm-hmm.
and he would and Mr. Kelleher would make a point to come visit with me, sit beside me on the plane,
Nice.
and but he was always interested in my career and what I was doing. So I had him and Colleen take one of these industrial pictures of themselves and sign it. And it was signed the no arrogance zone. And that was put at the employee entrance of our office, so that every day, every time everyone came in and went out, they understood that our office was a no arrogance zone.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most valuable embarrassment that I've had in my life.
That is a great story.
Professional
Though.
embarrassment, yeah.
That is a great story. Where can listeners find you online?
Okay, it's real simple. It's Johnston, JOHNSTON, at johnstonlegalgroup.com.
Great.
And that's my email. And then the website is johnstonlegalgroup.com.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us. We really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you at some AIMCO meetings.
Same here.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.